Well, we wanted to speak with people who are at the heart of this issue. And in fact, two of our panelists could not be here tonight because they were arrested this past weekend. Black Lives Matter activist DeRay McKesson, who Trace just told you about, was actually supposed to be here tonight. Plus, J. Mal Green had agreed to appear before police in Chicago arrested him on Saturday. His attorney is here to speak on his behalf. Thank you all, panel, so much for being here on what's obviously a very difficult issue. And I ask you, all of you, I'll put it to whoever wants to volunteer, why you think this time we haven't already gotten to a place of, all right, let's lower the temperatures. What we're seeing in the wake of last week is an escalation of sorts. After what we saw in Dallas and after what we saw in Louisiana and Minnesota, things seem to be getting worse and more inflamed. Anyone want to take that? Go ahead. Yes. Go ahead, Darren.
All right. One of the first things we have to take in consideration: this is not one incident. Police are the police basically protect us as a society. We need to respect police because this is what they're here to do. If not, we're going to have the movie The Purge. We have to take in consideration that these two incidents that happened both in Minnesota and what happened in Louisiana are not aberrations. The black community felt that they've received a level of injustice for a period of time, and therefore we've had this explosion. However, I don't agree with the execution. Common heads need to prevail. Everyone needs to sit down at the table, the major stakeholders, and devise a strategy as to what.
So how does the black community make its concerns heard? You go ahead, sir. You in the front, Carl Dix.
Look, this problem has been going on for. I mean, there's no time to list all the names. We see those videos, put them on top of hundreds and hundreds of people. More than 500 this year been killed by the police. We have seen people killed doing nothing wrong.
The vast majority involved people who were shooting at police or had guns pointed at police. Those are the stats. I'm not saying all of them. Not saying all of them.
More whites are killed, yeah, but disproportionately black people are killed.
Rocco, you can go next. Let Carl finish his point.
Police officers in the clip.
Okay, wait. Hold on. Carl, then Lisa, then Rocco. Go ahead.
Look, and see, that's the problem. Look, Bob Avakian, the leader of the revolution, has said the role of the police is not to protect and serve the people, but to protect and serve the system that rules over the people.
Lisa,
and
go.
that is exactly what it comes down to, and it's why I'm organizing for a revolution.
Clip, someone say they're out there and they're afraid. The police are afraid. What are you telling me? Police officers take an oath to protect us from criminal activity. And if you're telling me you are scared.
They just got shot. Lisa, they just got shot in the head while trying to protect the community.
And you are supposed to be there to protect me. What does it make me? They're running through the streets.
They just got gunned down like they were prey.
They're running through the black neighborhoods, and they're afraid, and they're shooting us senselessly because they're scared. What are they scared of?
All right, Rocco, go ahead. Rocco, right behind Lisa.
More to your point, the reason why this is escalating more is because of our leaders. None of the leaders have been fanning the flames along with media and along with social media. Now, here's what happens. Someone posts something on Facebook, and it goes into the news, and it's only a part of what happened. And everyone goes crazy. Right away, it's the cops. Right away, it's the cops. You know what? These cops go out there. They're taking their life in their hands every day. They're scared, yes, and they're careful. And they're careful because
go ahead, Pastor Mark Burns in the back row. Pastor Mark Burns.
Assassinate an officer. That is why they're out there.
Go ahead, Pastor Mark Burns in the back.
It's not a fear factor.
It's important.
Go ahead, Pastor.
They're afraid because in today's society, cops are walking on eggshells because they don't want to show up on the next cell phone video and be automatically condemned before facts are even presented. That's the problem.
That's good. Okay, Renata down in the front.
But see, you can't condemn.
Okay. All right. Stand by over here on the left. Renata, down front. Go ahead. Go for it.
This is why we can't come up with a solution, because no one wants to listen to one another. We should all be outraged over Dallas. We should be outraged over Minnesota. We should be outraged for what happened in Baton Rouge. No one should have lost their lives. The list continues, and it continues to go on. We are not going to get better until we all agree on what the problem is. Then we can come up with a solution. We
Pastor
need to
Wesley
hold
West, you say don't forget Baltimore. In Baltimore, we've had acquittals or a hung jury in all the cases. The officers have been exonerated by the courts.
Baltimore, Freddie Gray. I'm a pastor there in Baltimore, a young pastor at that. Even as a pastor, I'm afraid to come out my church let's be honest. The police are not trained properly. They police this community. They're not even from the communities in which they're policing.
But what
That's
what specific? Can I ask you specifically in Baltimore? Because in that case, so far we've had acquittals of the officers there. They've had their day in court, and they have been acquitted by an African American judge.
Yes.
No,
You have to remember.
No, let him answer. Let him answer. Go ahead.
Remember, the system is designed to protect the system, not the citizen.
So is the judge racist? Is the judge issuing racist decisions?
I would say again, the system is set. However we want to take that, the system is set and designed to protect the system.
Well, Bill Stanton, go ahead.
Megyn, quick question. All political leaders that are saying this is race-based, the two shootings, other than the fact that the victims were black and the officers were white, where is their due process and where is there any proof as of yet that this was a racist-based shooting?
Where is there? Go ahead. Right here. Now. I'm going to, sorry, Lauren, and then I'm going to get over this to you guys.
The point is the right one that you made a minute ago, right? It's not about, in many cases, it's not about the specifics of any one of these cases. I think we as white Americans have to respect and empathize with the black community in this country, who, whether they are right or wrong, feel aggrieved. And you don't have to agree, you don't have to understand that experience. Newt Gingrich said it beautifully this week. For white Americans, we may not personally relate to it. The question is, as Americans, can we feel a sense of compassion and understanding?
What about that? Because it's a very different experience. We saw this dating back to the O.J. Simpson case, right? Where white America reacted very differently than black America because whites have had different experiences for the most part with law enforcement than blacks have. Kevin, go ahead. Kevin Jackson in the front.
Continue to colorize these things. The gentleman back there said exactly the right thing. Why are we talking about this as a black-white issue? It was cops, right or wrong, they did something. The other thing that the pastor said, he talked about systematic stuff. The system that he's talking about was a Baltimore black mayor, a Baltimore black state attorney, cops, the police chief who was black. Let me just finish. And everybody in that system was pretty much black. Cops involved were black. And we're talking about it as if there was some boogeyman KKK guy that set this thing up. Hang on. The government that we're talking about here, the government we're talking about here.
Go ahead, Kevin.
The government we're talking about here is a government that is controlled by a president who's black, attorney general who's black, and before him who's black, and we continue to colorize this. The problem is because we aren't having discussions. We're having arguments as opposed to saying, you know what, the black community is complicit, the cops are complicit. How about we just have a discussion?
Want to go to Joe Hicks here or on the front?
It's that. But, we heard from Dix. This has now become an ideological issue. So you've got people now, they're looking at this in terms of using the issues of people dying, several people, in fact, and now 5 dead in Dallas. And you've got people that are seeing this from a very ideological perspective. I think that's what the problem with the Black Lives Matter issue. The people who are now controlling it and are directing it have a very ideological direction here.
They're not open-minded, you're saying.
Well,
to the facts, they have an agenda that they're pushing.
What's the shouting back and forth about? It isn't about engagement.
Well, but passions run deep.
Listening.
Passions run deep when, as you know, when many in the black community feel that they're more likely to get shot in the face if they get pulled over, and also amongst the cops who are just trying to protect these protesters and they get shot in the head. I got to leave it at that because we have many more segments we're going to get to with all of you. I'll give some love to this side of the room, which has not been loved in the first segment. Tonight, we are also watching a somber service at Dallas City Hall Plaza as candles are lit in memory of the 5 officers that gave their lives protecting the protesters last week. Plus, angry new fallout tonight after some controversial remarks from former New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani. The panel is back in moments on this.
And when you say Black Lives Matter, that's inherently racist.
Well, I think their
Black
argument
lives matter, white lives matter, Asian lives matter, Hispanic lives matter. That's anti-American and it's racist.
Breaking tonight, angry new fallout after the man who's been called America's mayor touches off a fierce debate by saying Black Lives Matter is racist. Here's former New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani, followed by Black Lives Matter leader DeRay McKesson.
When you say Black Lives Matter, that's inherently racist.
Well, I think their
Black
argument
lives matter, white lives matter, Asian lives matter, Hispanic lives matter. That's anti-American and it's racist. So if you want to deal with this on the black side, you've got to teach your children to be respectful to the police.
His statements remind us that he is both a disgrace to the country and an embarrassment. He is deflecting so that we are not engaged in a conversation about the abuses that the police inflict on communities of color time and time again.
Want to bring back our panel, a special group tonight. All right, let me just start because I think Sergeant Ed Mullins, you may have some thoughts on this. NYPD Sergeants Benevolent Association. Rudy Giuliani's gotten a lot of pushback on this already. He's made similar comments in the past. Was he out of line with that comment?
I think
in the front.
Being said is, I think Rudy's highlighting an issue that we see from law enforcement, and we could look at Chicago, we could look at the city of Baltimore when we see the riots and burning down your own community from the perspective of all lives matter. See, as law enforcement, all lives do matter. And Rudy's saying that, and, you know, we're going to talk about, you know, Black Lives Matter. We should be talking about how everyone's life matter. The clip you played in the very beginning of the shooter in Dallas, his dad, if you have children, whether we agree with what he did or not, there's a father who's heartbroken right now for what his son did. And you can take that man and translate him into the families of the police officers, the families of the individuals that were shot in Louisiana and Minnesota, or anyone who's had a child that was murdered. You know, we've had dozens and dozens of children in the city of Chicago under the ages of 12 years old that were murdered. And we're not talking about that.
Well, that's what Mayor Giuliani was saying. Black Lives Matter. Mayor Giuliani was saying that Black Lives Matter only cares when the black life that's taken is taken by a white police officer. That was his point. Wait a minute. Okay, in the back. Go ahead, Pastor Mark Burns.
Yes. Well, first of all, I've said that, and I know it's extremely controversial, but the fact of the matter is, it seems like black lives don't really matter until a black life is killed by a white cop. Because the fact of the matter is not so much what white cops do to the black community, but what do us as black people do to our own community. That's a fact.
Go ahead, in the front.
Giuliani brought in
Wesley West. Sorry, in the front. Wesley West.
With all due respect to the pastor, I'm a pastor myself, but I will say you have to be involved in the Black Lives Matter movement to understand. It is not a moment, but it's a movement. Here it is. Check this out. We are talking about the black community is rebuilding itself here, loving itself, not just against white people, but they're dealing with issues within themselves. So let's not just talk about we're just Black Lives Matter as in we're just racist.
Let me ask you. One of the things that got some people alienated against Black Lives Matter was the chanting that we saw after, right around the time the 2 New York City cops got executed.
Pigs in the blank.
Well, before that, it was what do we want? Dead cops. When do we want them now? And we haven't seen that. We haven't seen that at every Black Lives Matter at all. Go ahead, Lisa. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Everyone wants to deflect when we're getting blown in the head with bullets, chased down in the streets, choked when we can't breathe, by saying, hold on, I'll let you speak, by saying that blacks are killing blacks. Hold on, let me finish.
Let her finish. Let Lisa finish.
Everybody always says when we get shot in the head and when we're killed in the streets, but blacks are killing each other. Number one, oh, you want to kill us too? Number two, let's be real clear. Racism and murder in your community is interracial. 87% of all the white murders happen in the white community, perpetrated by whites. It's no different than our community, but you just see us on TV doing it. All communities murder each other. It's interracial. So don't try to deflect.
Go ahead. In the back.
Don't try to deflect.
The fact is that Black Lives Matter is a racial, radical, evil organization. They are worse than the KKK.
Wait, let him have a say.
They are worse than the KKK. And Black Americans who are suffering are not suffering because of racism. They are suffering because they are growing up without fathers and mothers in the home. And these kids are first being made angry in the home about that. And rather than dealing with that anger,
Let him finish. Go ahead.
Rather than dealing with that anger, they go out into the community and they have people like Jesse Jackson and the NAACP Barack Obama and others telling them it's the white man. And when you're already angry, it's hard to believe the truth.
We're going to talk about Barack Obama in a minute, but I want Chris Hahn, you had your hand up. Right there, yeah. Go ahead, Chris Hahn.
I'm trying to go back to Giuliani. And I think what he says reflects a fundamental problem white America has with understanding racism in America. They see a black president and they say, like a broken arm, it's healed. Exactly. Unfortunately, racism is like alcoholism. It is there under the surface. It is always there. We need to be vigilant to watch out for it. And the Black Lives Matter movement is not asking you to choose between black and white lives. It's asking you to acknowledge this racism that is fundamentally exists in America.
Go ahead, Michael Oppenheimer.
Part of the problem is that this has been going on for decades and decades and decades. In Chicago especially, you have a history of the police department, a panel appointed by Rahm Emanuel found there's inherent racism. There's also a lack of accountability. You have for years and years and years, not just shootings, but planted drugs, false stops, verbal and physical abuse of people that are pulled over. You have false traffic stops without probable cause. This has been hidden and covered up for years and years and years. It is only when there is a shooting that we hear about this. I have hundreds of cases where this has happened, and it's gone on and on and on. And then when this happens, so we need better training of police officers. We need psychological training so they can deal with mentally ill people. Recently, a person was shot swinging a bat far away from a police officer.
Okay. And then we'll talk about whether anything needs to happen, with the constituents, with the crime rate, with the fatherless families, whether that plays any role, as we just heard, alleged. Wait, and we'll do that right after this commercial break. We've got to pay the bills. We're also hearing some sharp new questions tonight about President Obama and how he's handled this issue. Britt Hume had some strong words for President Obama tonight. That's next.
In Dallas Tuesday, President Obama will be trying to calm racial tensions that his own behavior has done much to aggravate. From his denunciation of the Cambridge, Massachusetts police as acting, quote, stupidly in the arrest of black Harvard law professor Henry Louis Gates, they didn't, to his assertion that the motives of the Dallas cop killer are unclear, they aren't. The president has consistently chosen to see things through the eyes of an aggrieved black activist rather than of a president of all the people. He has not failed to speak out whenever a black is killed by a white police officer, but has said next to nothing about the continuing slaughter of blacks by other blacks in the streets of Chicago, Baltimore, and other cities. He has made his sympathy for the Black Lives Matter movement obvious, and never mind that the whole premise of that movement seems to be fallacious.
That was Fox News senior political analyst Britt Hume, leveling some strong criticism against President Obama for his handling of this issue. Back now with our panel, as we're also keeping an eye on some tense protests in Atlanta tonight, where you can just see that the tensions have not calmed down. They have not calmed down in the wake of what we saw in those three cities last week. 2 black men killed by police, and then Dallas, Texas, 5 police officers murdered. Anthony Calandra, you've got your hands up in the back.
Yes, I couldn't agree with Britt Hume more. Yeah. Since Obama has been elected, I've been calling him our divider-in-chief, and he's been fanning these flames that have grown to this point. And he only listens to people like Al Sharpton. He only listens to these people in this side, and he's done more to hurt this cause and create this situation we're in, rather than embracing law enforcement and all of us together as Americans. He's created this racial divide that I don't see, but the media and the press at large see.
Eric, has the president stirred racial tensions, as alleged?
The president has not stirred racial tensions. A lot of people are very unhappy that there's an African-American president at the helm. There are many white Americans who don't even want a black boss. But now you tell them, hey, you have a president of the United States who's African-American. That's one issue. But the second issue, back to policing, back to Black Lives Matter as well as policing, there are 2 major issues, Megyn. And I echo the lawyer from Chicago. Number one, there are hiring problems. The police officers need to be psychologically screened before hiring. Some of these people who go on and get a badge, they should not have any type of job involving a gun or any type of security.
Real quick,
secondly, no, let me finish, Kevin. And the second issue are quotas. The second issue are quotas involving African Americans and poor people who are stopped and harassed by police, because police are put on a quota system that they have to write a number of tickets and also make arrests.
And you're saying that hurts the African Americans? Denise Borelli, go ahead.
The issue is socioeconomic as well.
Let me just say this. Obama continues to be the community activist that he is. Instead of being a leader for our country, he weighed in from Poland on what happened in Dallas, didn't have all of the details, And when it came down to the individual being a black racist, Obama changes the narrative to blame guns for what happened, because being a black racist doesn't fit his narrative to say that black Americans are victims.
Gail Trotter in the front. Go ahead. Just for Gail.
That's right, because all Americans should let President Obama know that this example of what happened last week should not be another excuse to advance his ideological goal to eliminate guns in the United States. Because communities like Chicago that are run by Democrats...
But to say that, we'll get to guns, but the question is, as President Obama alleges, that the president... As Britt Hume alleges, the president highlighted cases, for example, in Ferguson, Missouri, which we now know was built on a lie. They did find racism within that police department, but what we were told about hands up, don't shoot was a lie, and it is one of the mantras of the movement, which is what upsets. Go ahead, Richard Fowler. Which is one of the reasons, along with what do we want dead cops, when do we want them now, why people think I don't know about this movement.
I think there's a misperception about the Black Lives Matter movement because it goes beyond just the killing of black people by police officers. It goes to what happened in Flint, Michigan, where the white governor put in his emergency manager and poisoned the poor black people in that city. That's exactly what happened. Detroit public school systems is another example where that happened.
Richard, you and I both know that the main way in which people know BLM is the protests over police officers' behavior.
There's a lot. Listen, everybody keeps throwing around the word racism. And let's be very clear on what racism is. Racism is when a predominant group who has power uses that power to degrade or discriminate against another group.
Go ahead, Joe Hicks in the front.
The same thing. That's so you. I would call ISIS racist, and I would call what happened.
We're going to do JoeIcks, and then we're going to do Tom.
Here's a gentleman trading in conspiracy theories that a government in Flint, Michigan, conspired to kill its black citizens. And by the way, it's not just black people in Flint, Michigan, so it's going to kill a whole lot of white folks. But wait.
Let him finish. Go ahead. Let him finish. Go ahead.
There's a guy behind me that played the ultimate straw man theory. He said that everybody said because Obama was put into presidency, then racism was taken care of. Who said that? Who said that? Do you think people are that stupid that they aren't sophisticated enough? And as soon as the issue of black people killing black people, this woman went completely ballistic. Last week, wait a minute, you were running your mouth.
Go ahead, wait, let him finish.
Last week, 3 people were walking out of a liquor store in San Bernardino. People are familiar with San Bernardino because that's where the massacre took place. 2 black men and a 9-year-old boy walking out of a liquor store, mowed down by a black suspect. Where was Black Lives Matter? Did you guys mobilize in San Bernardino? Did you guys express any
Go ahead, Lauren Shivy.
We can argue about this all day. Conservatives and liberals agree that we need criminal justice reform immediately. Absolutely. This is not a partisan issue. This is an issue based on fact. You've got the Koch brothers. You've got Rand Paul working with Cory Booker because there are systematic issues in our criminal justice system.
But what if
we do not deal with them, set aside whether or not we agree on who's racist or who's not, the facts and the numbers speak for themselves, which is why you have ultra-conservative groups.
Okay, but as Britt Hume pointed out, but let me challenge that, but as Britt Hume pointed out, there was just a Harvard study that concluded that the police are more likely to shoot whites than blacks, and the man behind the study, an African-American man at Harvard, called the study the most surprising result of his career, that you are more likely to get shot by a police officer if you are a white, they concluded. Go ahead. Actually, we haven't heard from Carl in a while. Go ahead, Carl. It's not right?
More white people are shot by police than any other group. That's true. But disproportionately, black people, Native people, and Latinos are the percentages of them shot by police.
This was factored in. This was factored in. That fact existed before the study.
You're not solving anything by saying they shoot white people too. I'm saying the role of the police is not to protect the people, but to protect the system that rules over them.
And the majority of whites that are shot by police officers
for
are
people
guilty of those crimes.
Let's talk about
we got to wrap. We're going to come right back. Don't worry. Plenty more to go through. It's only 9:36. The night is young. While we keep an eye on these protests in Atlanta, we're hearing a couple of folks suggest that the shooter over in Dallas was a, quote, martyr. We'll put that to the panel when we come back.
From the
the world headquarters of Fox News, it's the Kelly File with Megyn Kelly.
Welcome back, everybody. We are watching the crowds grow at this candlelight vigil in Dallas. And we saw a provocative headline late today asking whether the Dallas shooter is, quote, a hero or a villain. A hero? For more on that, we turn to our panel. It's really unbelievable. The first, correct me if I'm wrong, Control Room, but it's the first African-American Miss Alabama. She won in '83, came out today, '93, and said, I see this guy as a martyr. I see the shooter in Dallas, Texas as a martyr. A martyr? Go ahead. Sorry, go ahead now.
Cops. So they're getting exactly what they wanted. They wanted us to kill cops, and that's what black people are doing. They're killing cops. They are responding. They are responding.
All right, so we're gonna go. So Jessica in the front. Hold on. Jessica's in part of Black Lives Matter.
Has never called for the shooting of violence against anyone. Period.
What about what do we want? Dead cops? When do we want?
What would we like to happen? First of all, what I've been hearing here, this is the reason why our young people are hopeless in America. Our young people are hopeless because you have all these adults here who are not listening to our young people. They talk about black on black crime in Chicago. I'm from Chicago. My organizing and activism has been on intra-community violence. We understand like what she was talking about. How violence is, we got the point. What I'm trying to say is here.
Wait, let her finish.
We need to abolish the police, period. And demilitarize the police, disarm the police, and we need to come up with community solutions for transformative justice. What we are seeing with all these cases, what we are seeing, can we all agree that a loss of a life is tragic? Can we all agree on that? Can we all agree? I'm asking. I have a point here.
No, just keep going.
I've been peaceful since I've been here, but I need to speak because I came here from Chicago to speak, right? And so we all can agree that the loss of a life is tragic. We all can agree that excessive force and extrajudicial killings by law enforcement needs to be stopped. People, black, white,
Who's going to protect the community if we abolish the police?
We need to come up with community solutions. The police force in this country began as slave patrol.
Any of that wants to take that? Anybody? Yeah, like somebody who hasn't spoken yet. Kevin, since you're right there, go ahead.
Answer: the guy is a villain. It doesn't matter what color he was. Doesn't matter who got killed. He killed people.
Is there anybody here who sees that guy as a martyr?
No, of course not.
You don't see him as a martyr.
If he is a martyr, then Dylan Roof, who went into that church and shot 9 people in charge of it, is a martyr. You understand what I'm saying? Are you guys proud of what Dylan Roof did? It's white America. It's white America. It's white America. I'm asking.
No.
Was Dylan Roof a martyr?
The answer is no.
Was Adam
The answer is no. Okay. All right. Hold on. It's crossing over into the.
He wasn't a martyr.
We don't want it to be Springer-esque, right? We want it to be Kelly File-esque. Go ahead, Ron Hosko.
We have 15 minutes. We need to talk about solutions. We need to invest in our police like we invest in critical infrastructure. If we don't, our bridges fall, our pipelines blow up, our trains run off the rails.
What do you do about the cops who are racist, who do have a happy trigger finger?
We need leadership. We need to invest in a culture of compliance and constitutional policing. And we don't do it on a shoestring budget where there are too few cops going from 911 call to 911 call, where you can't have officer friendly on the street, making friends and influencing people because he's in a patrol car flying by to the next call. We have to invest.
I'm just curious for any of the cops here, what you think would happen if we abolish the police force. Well, Tom, you go in the back.
Yeah, all right. First of all, yeah, we're not going to abolish it. Let's get back into reality here. We're not going to abolish the police. First of all. Second of all, the shooter in Dallas, as well as the shooter in the church, are both psychotic mutants. All right, so let's call that what it is. Third of all, we live in still a largely racist, sexist, homophobic society. The police are a subculture within our overall culture. I will always advocate for investing in the police and improved training, but until we root out the cancer of racism in our country, as well as sexism and homophobia, we are doomed as a nation. We are divided instead of
in the front, yes, Emily Compagnon.
Period.
We spent $80 billion
a year right now in our incarceration system, and that's of our $200 billion budget on law enforcement and protection. So right now what I see as a huge discrepancy as well is the poor communities, because they are in turn adversely and greatly impact the minority communities. And so what I see is, instead of spending $80 billion on this incarceration system, why don't we shift some of those funds into these drug treatment programs? Because what I saw as a federal attorney is that all of these incarceration does not address these highly addictive, for example, drug abusers, when we have mandatory minimum sentencing.
And there are Republicans and Democrats working on that right now. Bill Stanton, what do you say?
I'll tell you why. Because we're all listening to what we're listening to ourselves. Nobody is listening to each other. You know what works? Pastor Wesley and I, before the show started, him and I are as polar opposite as we can get on perception and everything. You and I are talking, we're going to go out for a beer. He's a nice guy. We don't have to agree to get along. And we have to listen to what the other person is actually saying.
I've had drinks with Bill many times. I don't recommend it.
Can I please say this? Can I please say this?
Go ahead, Wesley.
I want to say this, please.
Yeah, you go.
I must say this. We're talking about solutions. I love what he just said. It's time for the police to go in on the basis of their relationship and not the basis of their authority. It is the authority that...
We are seeing more community policing. We are seeing more partnering with the communities. We were seeing it in Dallas.
Okay, listen, I'm from Baltimore. Again, on the ground. I only see that happen, togetherness and relationship, only when the camera's around. What about when CNN has gone away, Fox has gone away? What happens?
Even in Dallas, where those cops were doing that. They were doing that before they were shot down.
Very specific.
Yeah, go ahead.
Talked about reinvesting more in the police. How about we divest from the police and take that money and put into youth programs? We talk about all these crime and violence in our communities. In Chicago, the police spend $4 million a day. $4 million a day, and we're closing 50 schools. The Chicago Police Department takes up 40% of the city's budget. And you look at the crime, you look at the violence, defund the police.
Gotta go. Here's a question. Who can unify Americans when we've already seen, even on this panel, the divisions over this issue? I mean, it gets crazy, but it shows you how deeply the passions run. And this is just a microcosm of what we're seeing in America. Hillary Clinton's answer versus Donald Trump's after the break.
What we need is major tax reform.
Fairly targeted. Breaking tonight, new reaction to how presumptive major party nominees are balancing praise for police officers while recognizing that many people of color feel unfairly targeted. We're already seeing how Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton plan to address the divide, raising the question, who will be better at unifying our nation? Take a look.
I will bring law enforcement and communities together to develop national guidelines on the use of force by police officers. We will make it clear for everyone to see when deadly force is warranted and when it is not.
We must maintain law and order at the highest level, or we will cease to have a country. 100%. We will cease to have a country. I am the law and order candidate.
We're back now with our panel. Tom, what were your thoughts?
My thoughts are there's too much crime in the black community, too much unemployment in the black community. What we need is major tax reform, and that's what Mr. Trump is talking about. Hillary Clinton wants to raise energy taxes, energy prices through regulations. That is a racist policy because blacks have the lowest average income and higher energy profits.
That's the craziest thing I've heard all night. But
that's nonsense.
Moving on.
Never what?
No, it's wrong.
Go ahead, Richard Fowler. Let him.
You're not going to stop the you're wrong. You're wrong. What? No. I'm not going to let you sit here and lie.
Richard Fowler, go ahead. The microphone is yours.
The most.
Whoa.
Richard, start talking or I'm going to leave you.
Usually he probably thinks I was going to be aggressive first, but hey, whatever.
Go ahead.
Here's the thing. What Donald Trump will do this week, the Bahamas, right? The country of Bahamas issued a travel warning against the United States and telling their citizens that if they come here, they're likely to get mowed down by police officers. If that doesn't tell you that we have a problem in this country, then what will? What will? His reaction is part of the problem.
My reaction.
Yes, your reaction.
So many to choose. Okay, in the back, thank you. Maggie Gallagher, go for it.
You know, this is a very discouraging conversation to me because what I see is that 5 cops in Dallas were deliberately targeted. That is an attack on each and every one of us. But a cop was shot in Baldwin, Missouri, in Georgia, in Tennessee. Tonight, I see in Michigan, somebody grabbed a gun from a deputy and shot 2 bailiffs. The reality here is that what is new and what we have spent no time talking about is that we seem to have created a climate in which it is open season on cops. There is no right to resist arrest. And the struggle...
How about that? Because I'll tell you, Maggie's comments have been reflected on Twitter where people are saying if folks would be more compliant when placed under arrest, even if they're innocent, they would not find themselves the target of police. Go ahead in the front. Let's keep Renata. Go.
I think we all know if Philando Castile was white and he was with his white child and his white girlfriend and white wife, he would be alive today. I think it's open season. It is open season. Excuse me. It's open season on black men because they are seen as objects of fear. No, that is very true. We need to address that.
Rocco, let him respond.
The stuff I'm hearing here tonight is part of the problem. Is part of the problem. Here's what needs to happen. Starting from the top down, starting from the president, starting from Sharpton, Jesse Jackson, the other so-called leaders, Dr. Dre,
let him finish.
All the professional people and professional black men need to start getting into the communities. Take off the $1,000 suits. The other pastors get into the community and say, hey, guys, here's what needs to happen. You need to start getting an education. We need to start looking at the books. We need to start educating ourselves.
I got a heart break in 5 seconds.
We need to stop.
We'll be right back.